The door to Kamsi's kitchen swung open so hard it caught the frame twice. She stood in the entrance of her own restaurant, gold dress catching the light, 30 years old, and completely alone on her birthday. The Lagos night air was warm against her face. Music drifted from inside her playlist, her restaurant, her life, and she stood outside all of it like a stranger. She pressed one hand flat against the wall, breathed in, breathed out. Then she straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and walked back through the door. 3 hours earlier, everything had been perfect. Kamsi's kitchen smelled like jollof rice, sesame oil, and money well spent. 8 years ago, she had opened this place with her father's recipe journal, 40,000 naira she had saved from 3 jobs, and the kind of stubbornness that her mother called a curse and her father called a gift. Tonight it was full, every table, every bar stool, every corner occupied by people who loved her or at least had excellent taste in food. She moved through the room the way she always did, touching a shoulder here, laughing at something there, reading the temperature of every table before the staff even noticed a problem. This was her language. Hospitality was not a job for Kamsi Obi. It was the only way she knew how to love a room full of people at once. "You look happy," Amara said, appearing at her elbow with 2 glasses of palm wine cocktail, condensation already forming on the outside. "I am," Kamsi said, and she meant it. Amara was the kind of friend who had been there so long she had stopped being a person and started being a location, somewhere Kamsi always knew how to find. They had met in university, survived 3 bad landlords together, and Amara had been sitting in the front row when Kamsi signed the lease on this building. She handed over the glass without being asked and leaned against the wall beside her. "Emeka is about to do his toast," Amara said. Kamsi looked across the room. Emeka stood near the bar, tall, charming, the kind of man who filled a room the moment he entered it. 4 years together. He caught her eye and raised his glass and smiled the smile that had made her say yes when he first asked her to dinner, and she smiled back. Something moved across his face then, something quick. She filed it away without examining it. Her younger sister Chisom appeared at her other side, breathless and beautiful. Her Aso-oak headwrap tilted at an angle that said she had fixed it 3 times, and it kept deciding to be interesting. "Unnai," Chisom said, a word she had picked up from Korean dramas and had never stopped using despite Kamsi being fully, entirely Nigerian. "I think I left my good earrings in your office upstairs. Can I go get them quickly?" "The door's open," Kamsi said without looking up from her guests. "Just don't touch the reservation binder." Chisom was already gone. Kamsi moved on to the next table, greeted an old supplier and his wife, laughed at a joke she had heard before, accepted a birthday hug from her head chef, who had made her a small private cake with sesame and hibiscus because he knew exactly how she liked things, never too sweet, always layered. She did not notice when Emeka slipped away from the bar. She would notice 20 minutes later. She went upstairs for the reservation binder. It was a practical thing. She needed next week's numbers, and her mind was already moving into the week ahead the way it always did, even on her birthday, even at midnight. The party noise below thinned as she climbed. Up here the hallway was quiet, the kind of quiet that has texture to it. The light was already on in her office. She pushed the door open. 1 second of complete silence. Then the world rearranged itself. She did not scream. That was the thing that surprised her most about herself in the days that followed, that she had not screamed. She stood in the doorway of her own office on her own birthday, and she watched the 2 faces turn toward her, and she felt everything that had ever made her feel safe quietly fold itself up and leave the room. 10 years of knowing Emeka. 26 years of being Chisom's older sister. All of it compressed into a single moment that lasted both 1 second and the rest of her life. Emeka scrambled upright. His mouth was already moving. Words forming, explanations assembling themselves, the whole desperate machinery of a man trying to outrun what he had already done. Chisom made a sound, something between a gasp and her name. Kamsi raised one hand. They both stopped. She looked at her sister. Chisom, who she had taught to braid hair and helped study for WAEC and defended at every family gathering where relatives said she was spoiled. Chisholm, who had texted her 20 minutes ago asking about earrings. She looked at her for a long time. Then she pulled the door closed, quietly. The click of the latch was the loudest sound in the building. She walked back down the stairs. She picked up her wine glass from the table where she had left it. Amara appeared beside her immediately, that sixth sense activated, and Kamsi shook her head once. Not now. Amara went still. Kamsi walked to the small microphone she had set up for her birthday speech. She had written notes. She did not look at them. "I have never been good at receiving love," she began, and her voice was steady, warm, carrying across the room the way a good host's voice always does. "I am much better at making sure other people feel it. So tonight I want to say thank you for every person in this room who showed up, who ate my food, who trusted me with the thing people trust restaurants with more than they realize, their memories. The anniversary dinners, the job celebrations, the first dates. You let me be part of your life. That is the greatest gift this restaurant has ever given me." People clapped, someone cheered. Her head chef pressed both hands to his chest. She smiled until the room settled, then excused herself gracefully, said she needed some air, and walked through the front door. The moment it closed behind her, she sat down on the top step and exhaled everything she had been holding since the third-floor hallway. Her hand trembled, just once. She pressed it flat against her knee and it stopped. Above her, Lagos breathed, generators humming. Somewhere distant, a sound system playing something she recognized but could not name, the particular warm noise of a city that never fully sleeps. She looked up at the sky and thought about her father. He had died 6 years ago, and she still talked to him in the private rooms of her mind when things got heavy. "I'm okay," she told him. "I think I'm okay." She was not entirely sure she believed it yet, but she would be. That much she knew about herself. The car appeared at the far end of the street. Black, impossibly clean. Moving slowly, the way vehicles move when they already know exactly where they are going. It parked directly in front of the restaurant with the confidence of something that had done this before in a past life. The man who stepped out was Korean, tall, dressed in a suit so dark it looked like an architectural decision. His face was the kind of face that had learned, through long practice, to reveal nothing, not hostility, not warmth, not anything you could hold on to. He walked toward her with the measured pace of someone who had never rushed anything in his life and had no plans to start. He looked at her sitting on the steps. She looked at him. "Kamsi Obi," his voice was quiet, accented but clear. "Who's asking?" His hand moved to his jacket. She tensed, she could not help it, but what he produced was a folded piece of paper, which he set on the step beside her without touching her. Then he stepped back. The gesture had the quality of something practiced but genuine. "My employer would like to meet with you, tonight if possible." She looked at the paper without picking it up. "Your employer couldn't call." "He prefers first impressions to be deliberate." She picked up the paper, unfolded it. There was a name, Jang Hyun-woo, and below it a number with many zeros that she looked at without expression, because she had learned a long time ago that the way you first react to money tells people too much about your relationship with it. She folded it again. "Tell your employer I'll need 20 minutes. She went back inside, found Amara at the bar, watching her with eyes that had already computed that something was wrong and were waiting for instructions. "Don't let Emeka and Chisholm leave," Kamsi said quietly. "I'll be back, I have a meeting." Amara's eyes went wide. "A meeting, Kamsi, it's your birthday." 20 minutes, keep them here." She went to touch up her makeup in the staff bathroom. She looked at herself in the mirror, the same face she had always had. The one her father said looked like her grandmother, and her mother said looked like trouble, and she made a decision she could not have fully named yet. Whatever tonight had destroyed, it had also freed her hands. The hotel was one she knew. She had catered their rooftop event twice, knew the head chef personally, had sourced their palm oil supplier. This small fact settled something in her chest as the elevator rose. The room Hyun-woo occupied was on the private floor. Sparse. One table, 2 chairs, a single lamp making a circle of warm light in the center of an otherwise cool space. He was standing at the window with his back to her when she entered. He turned. He was younger than she had expected. Or perhaps not younger, perhaps simply more tired than someone his age should be. The kind of tired that comes not from lack of sleep, but from the specific weight of inheriting something enormous and not having been consulted about whether you wanted it. He gestured to the chair. She sat not because he told her to, but because she chose to, and the difference mattered to her even when no one else could see it. "You know who I am," he said. "I know what you are," she replied. "That's not the same thing." He held her gaze for a moment. Then he opened a folder on the table and slid it toward her with 2 fingers, the gesture economical and practiced. She read without touching anything at first. Then she picked up the document and read it properly, the way she read every contract, all of it, including the parts people assumed you would skim. He needed a fiancée, publicly credible. His grandfather was dying, and the old man's final coherent wish was to see his grandson settled before he went, and the family's inner circle, traditional, watchful, deeply skeptical of a man who had no visible roots, needed something real to look at. 6 months, 7 public events. She continued running her restaurant. He continued running his empire, whatever precise shape that empire took, generous compensation. 0 romantic obligation. She set the document down. "Why me?" Something moved through his expression, not surprise, more like recognition. As if the question was the correct one and he had been waiting to see if she would ask it. "Because you are the most respected Nigerian restaurateur in Lagos with active Korean business connections. Because you conducted yourself tonight in a way that most people would not have managed." He paused. "Because you are sitting in that chair right now instead of somewhere falling apart. And because the person I need is not an actress performing stability. They need to actually have it." She studied his face. "You had me watched." "I had you researched. There is a difference." "Not much of one." "No," he agreed, "not much." Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, just honest. She picked up the pen. "I have conditions." He leaned back slightly. The ghost of something, not quite a smile, but the architecture of one, crossed his face. "I expected nothing less." Her conditions were 3, and she stated them without apology. His team would use her restaurant for 3 of the public events as paid catering contracts, real commercial rates, not favors. He would never question a decision she made about her business. And if anything from his world touched her staff or her customers in any way that put them at risk, she would walk out of the arrangement the same day. He read them, nodded once for each one. Then he added one of his own. "In private, be exactly who you are. I have enough performance in my life already." She looked at him for a long moment. "Deal." They shook hands across the table. His grip was careful, not weak, just careful, the way someone handles something they have decided to take seriously. Hers was firm. Neither of them let go quite fast enough to be purely professional. She noticed. She filed it away. She went back to her restaurant just before midnight. The party had thinned, good guests knowing when to leave, the stragglers finishing the last of the wine. Amara met her at the door and tilted her head toward the far corner where Emeka sat with Chisholm at a table separated from everyone else, 2 people marooned in their own particular disaster. Kamsi walked to them slowly. Emeka stood up immediately, words already flooding out of him. "Please, Kamsi, just listen. It wasn't. I mean it was, but it wasn't what it looks like. I was going to tell you. I've been trying to end it for months, please just." She held up one hand. He stopped. "You have 30 seconds, she said. Her voice was even. Not cold, even. There is a difference. Use them for whatever gives you peace. Not for me, for you, because after tonight I am done giving you my time." He used the 30 seconds. She let him. When he finished, she looked at him with the same expression she wore when a dish came out of the kitchen wrong, not angry, just clear about what needed to happen next. She set his key on the table. No drama, just the quiet full stop at the end of a sentence. Then she looked at Chisholm. Her sister could not meet her eyes. Her head wrap had come fully undone now, fabric draped over one shoulder, and she looked younger than Kamsi had seen her look in years. Not the younger sister performing her own confidence, just a young woman sitting in the wreckage of something she could not entirely explain. Kamsi leaned down so only Chisholm could hear her. "Leave my restaurant tonight and don't contact me until I call you. That may take some time. When I call, pick up." Chisholm pressed her lips together, nodded. Kamsi straightened, turned away from both of them. She went into her kitchen. The staff had finished cleaning, surfaces gleaming, everything in its place. She turned on the tap at the main sink and began washing the few dishes her chef had left for morning. Hot water, soap, the particular solitude of a kitchen after service. Her mind was quiet. Not empty, never empty, but quiet the way a room is quiet after a storm passes through it. Rearranged, settled into a new shape. "I'm okay," she told her father again. This time she believed it. Hey, if you're already feeling Kamsi's story, hit that subscribe button. This channel is where stories like hers live. Now let's keep going. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in preparation. Hyun-woo's personal assistant, a small, sharp Korean woman named Soo-yeon who spoke 4 languages and had the energy of someone who had never once in her life been late, briefed Kamsi on everything. Family hierarchy. Formal address protocols. Which of Hyun-woo's relatives were watching for weakness and which were simply curious. How to greet his grandfather if they reached that moment. How to hold chopsticks in a formal Korean setting versus a casual one. A distinction Kamsi already knew, but appreciated being told anyway. She sat through all of it taking notes in the small leather journal she carried everywhere, asking questions that made Soo-yeon pause and then answer with visible respect. One afternoon Hyun-woo arrived at Kamsi's kitchen without warning. She was in the middle of a phone call with a supplier who had sent the wrong grade of gochugaru for the 4th time, and she was explaining, with the particular calm of someone who has been patient longer than they should have been, exactly what the consequences of a 5th mistake would look like for their professional relationship. She did this in a mixture of English and Yoruba that communicated more in its rhythm than its words. Hyun-woo sat at the bar. He did not interrupt. He did not check his phone. He simply sat and watched her work with the quality of attention she had only ever seen her father apply to things he found genuinely interesting. When she hung up, she looked across the restaurant at him. Flour dusted her forearms from the morning's bread. Her hair wrap had shifted. She did not apologize for any of it. "You could have called," she said. "You weren't answering calls." "I was working." "I know," a pause. "I watched you work." "That is becoming a habit." He almost smiled. The almost smile was something she had begun to catalog. It appeared in specific conditions, seemed to be the most honest expression his face knew how to make, and lasted approximately 1 second before his features returned to their default careful arrangement. They sat at her best table, the corner one, by the window with the view of the street, and worked through their official story over bowls of her pepper soup with rice cakes, a combination that had appeared on her menu after a late-night experiment 3 years ago and had never left. He ate without performing appreciation, which she found more flattering than enthusiasm would have been. He stayed past the time the meeting required. She did not point this out. The gala was at the top floor of a building in Victoria Island, where the air conditioning worked too well, and the champagne was French, and everyone in the room was watching everyone else with the specific attentiveness of people who understood that information was currency. Kamsi arrived on Hyun-woo's arm in a gold dress, not the birthday dress, a different one, structured at the shoulders, falling cleanly, and she moved into the room the way she moved through her restaurant, like she already knew where everything was. Hyun-woo kept his hand at the small of her back, light, correct, the touch of a man being careful with something he had decided mattered. Halfway through the room he leaned down, close enough that anyone watching would see a man speaking privately to his fiancée, and said quietly, "The woman in blue near the second column. She has photographed us 4 times since we arrived. She works for my cousin Di-young, who believes he should be having this conversation with my grandfather instead of me. Do not look at her directly." Kamzi tilted her face up toward his and laughed softly at something he had not said. Her eyes stayed warm. Her body language said, "I am exactly where I want to be." "What would you like me to do?" she murmured. "Nothing. You're already doing it." They moved through the room like water finding its level. She spoke to a Korean textile businessman whose wife had eaten at her restaurant twice and remembered her immediately. She spoke to a Nigerian finance minister's aide who had not expected her there and recalibrated visibly when Hyun-woo introduced her with the ease of a man introducing the most important person in his life. Later in the car, the city sliding past the windows in long lines of light. "You're good at this," Hyun-woo said. She looked at the street. "I've been performing competence for skeptical people my entire career. It stops feeling like performance eventually." A pause. "It wasn't performance tonight," he said. She turned to look at him. He was looking forward, watching the road, his profile unreadable in the shifting light. She turned back to the window. Neither of them spoke again until the car stopped. 6 weeks into the arrangement, Chisholm called. Kamzi was in her office. The same office, different now. She had rearranged the furniture and put a new print on the wall, small acts of reclamation, reviewing the month's numbers, which were good. Better than good. The catering contract from Hyun-woo's first event had brought in more than she had projected, and 2 new reservation requests had come in from Korean business families who had apparently heard about the Nigerian restaurateur who had sat calmly through a room full of very watchful people and held her own. She almost let the call go to voicemail. She answered. Chisholm's voice was wrong immediately. Not guilty wrong, Kamzi knew what her sister's guilt sounded like. This was something else. Smaller, more frightened. Kamzi, just her name, like she was checking that her sister was still there. "I'm here. I need to tell you something, but I don't know how. I don't know if I can." Start with the truth and work from there. A long silence, the kind of silence that has weight behind it. "I can't, not yet, but Kamzi, please don't trust Emeka. Whatever you think happened that night, it's more than what it looked like. Please." "Chisholm." The call ended. Kamzi sat with her phone in her hand. She looked at it for a long time. Then she called Amara. "I need you to find out everything you can about Emeka's business dealings over the last 12 months. Everything. Bank records if you can get them, business partnerships, any new people in his circle. Don't ask me why yet, just find it." Amara, to her eternal credit, said only, "How long do I have?" "A week. Give me 4 days." That evening Hyun-woo came to the restaurant. This had become a thing. Thursday evenings, after closing, the kitchen cleaned and quiet, the 2 of them at the corner table with whatever she felt like cooking that night. It had not been in the contract. Neither of them had discussed it. It had simply started one Thursday, when he arrived at 8 with a bag of naengmyeon noodles he had brought from a Korean grocery that had opened in Lekki. And she had made broth from the leftover beef bones in her walk-in fridge, and they had eaten together in the quiet of the empty restaurant, and somehow both of them had been back the following Thursday. She told him about Chisholm's call. She did not know why she told him. She was not someone who shared things easily. She had spent years in an industry where showing uncertainty was expensive, and the habit of containment had become structural. But he was already looking at her in the way he did when he was actually listening, not assembling his response while she was still talking, and so she told him. He said nothing for a while after she finished. Then, "My grandfather used to say, a secret that makes someone afraid is a secret somebody else is holding over them." Kamzi turned that over. "My father," she said slowly, "before he died he told me he had debts, things he owed to people. I assumed he meant money. He had borrowed to help start the restaurant." She paused, but he said it strangely, like the weight of it was something other than financial. "What was your father's business?" "Import, export, Lagos to Seoul mostly. He built connections in Korea over 20 years. Half the reason my menu is what it is." A small pause. He loved Korea. He said it was the only other country that argued with its food the same way Nigeria did, like seasoning was a matter of family honor. Hyun-woo had gone very still. The quality of his stillness was different from his usual careful neutrality. This was the stillness of someone receiving information their body already knows before their mind finishes processing it. "What was your father's name?" His voice was quiet. "Chukwumeka Obi," everyone called him. "Emeka," Hyun-woo said. She stopped. The word sat between them. "Hyun-woo." He stood up. "I need to show you something." His office was in a building 20 minutes away, private floor, the kind of security she noticed without commenting on. He went to a desk in the far corner and opened a locked drawer with a key he kept on his person and not on a ring. He placed two things on the desk: a photograph and a letter. She picked up the photograph first. Her father, younger, maybe 40, wearing the blue kaftan he'd had for years and she had cried into at his funeral, standing beside a Korean man she did not recognize, both of them laughing at something outside the frame. Behind them, what looked like a warehouse somewhere coastal. Her father's hand was on the Korean man's shoulder, and they had the posture of men who had been through something together and come out the other side. Her hands were not entirely steady when she picked up the letter. Her father's handwriting. She would know it anywhere, that particular way he made his capital letters slightly larger than necessary, like each sentence began with emphasis. She read it. "If my daughter ever falls, find her. Not to rescue her, she will not want that, and you will lose her immediately if you try. But if she needs a foundation, be one. She builds things. She has always built things. She just sometimes forgets that even builders need ground to stand on. You owe me nothing, but if you can, be the ground." The letter was addressed to Hyun-woo's father. It was dated 8 years ago, 2 years before her father died. She read it twice. Then she set it down on the desk very carefully, the way you set down something irreplaceable. "They were partners," Hyun-woo said. "For years. Before I took over, before any of what we are now, our fathers built something together. Your father helped mine through a situation that would have ended our family's ability to operate legitimately in West Africa. He asked for nothing in return. He just helped, because apparently that was who he was." "It was," she said. Her voice was very quiet. "When my father was dying, he gave me a list of things. Debts of honor, he called them, not financial. Things owed to people who had never asked for payment. Your father was at the top of the list." He paused. "I had been looking for the right moment for 3 months before your birthday. I did not want to appear in your life during a period of stability and introduce disruption. Your father's letter said, wait until she needs it. I was waiting." "You didn't have to manufacture the crisis," she said. "No," he said, "I didn't have to." She stood and walked to the window. Lagos at night below them, the lights, the movement, the city that had held both her and her father and was still holding her now. "He never told me," she said. "He kept all of this from me. I think he wanted you to build what you built without knowing there was a net. He was very specific about that in the letter. He said if you knew there was someone watching, you might not push as hard." She laughed. It came out unexpected, wet at the edges. That is exactly what he would think. She stood there for a while and did not try to manage what was moving through her. Grief and something else, something that felt like being understood across years, by a man who was no longer alive, through a letter written to a stranger who had turned out not to be a stranger at all. When she turned back, Hyun-woo was still standing by the desk, waiting, not trying to fill the space with anything. "Did you know me?" she asked. "Before, from the beginning of all this, did you know who I was?" "I knew your name," he said. "I didn't know you." A pause. "I know you now." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she picked up her bag. "I'll see you Thursday," she said. At the door, she stopped without turning around. "Thank you," she said, "for keeping his word." She left before he could answer. She needed the drive home to be her own. Amara called 4 days later, exactly as promised. Kamzi was at the restaurant, prep already underway, when she stepped outside to take the call. She leaned against the wall in the small alley beside the building and listened without interrupting while Amara laid it out. Emeka had accumulated gambling debts over 18 months, not small ones. The kind that attracted the kind of people who treated debt as leverage. The organization he owed had spent 6 months trying to use him as an entry point into Kamsi's Korean business network. Her restaurant was the legitimate infrastructure they needed. He had tried to position himself more formally in the business. She had declined, professionally and clearly, 3 times. She had never known why he kept pushing. Now she did. When that approach failed, they moved to a different one. They found Chisholm's secret, a night 3 years ago, a car, an accident on a wet road in Ikoyi, a man who had walked away bleeding, and a settlement paid quietly by a family friend. Evidence preserved. The family compensated and silent, but the documentation still existed somewhere. Their price for keeping it buried: remove Kamsi's stability, break her down, isolate her from her network, make her vulnerable enough that when they offered to help rebuild, she would be in no position to ask questions about the terms. The birthday had been planned for weeks. Chisholm had been coerced. Emeka had not been coerced. He had been willing. Kamsi stood in the alley and felt the last piece of the shape settle into place. She thought of her sister's voice on the phone, not guilty, frightened, and she felt something release in her chest that she had not realized she had been holding. "Send me everything," she said. "Every document, every record, every communication you found. Send it all." She went back inside. She had a lunch service to run. If this story has you hooked, and we know it does, smash that like button right now. It keeps stories like this coming. Back to Kamsi. She called Hyun-woo that evening from her car. "I need 2 things," she said. "Your legal team, the real one, not the public relations one, and your financial investigators. I have documented evidence of extortion, coercion, and organized fraud. I will handle the press myself. I just need the legal architecture and someone to verify the financial trail." A brief silence. "Done. I'm also filing a police report tonight. I have a contact in EFCC. Also done. Do you need me to?" "No," she said. "I need you to stay available. I'll call if something requires your direct involvement. Otherwise, I have this." "Understood." A pause that felt different from the professional pauses. "Kamsi." "Yes." "How are you?" She looked through her windshield at the street. A woman was selling chin-chin from a tray balanced on her head, moving between the slow-moving evening traffic with the practiced grace of someone who had done this 1,000 times. "I'm better than I've been in a long time," she said, and that was the truth. "When this is over," she continued, "I want to renegotiate the contract." Another pause. "The 6 months are almost up." "I know. I'll have my lawyer draft new terms. Have him include a clause about Thursday dinners, permanently." The almost smile was in his voice when he spoke again. "I'll have it added tonight." She hung up first. She sat in the car for 1 moment more, looking at the chin-chin seller moving through the traffic, unhurried, certain of her footing. Then she got out and went to find justice. Justice, when it finally came, was quieter than the movies suggested. Emeka was arrested on a Tuesday morning. No dramatic confrontation, she was not there for it, had not wanted to be. She heard about it from Amara, who heard it from a contact in the right office. Handcuffs and paperwork and the mundane machinery of consequence doing exactly what it was built to do. The organization behind him unraveled over 3 weeks. Hyun-woo's financial investigators found threads she had not even pulled. The EFCC contact she had cultivated over 2 years of feeding his department's catering events quietly opened the right doors. International coverage followed, 3 arrests with business connections across Lagos and Seoul, the kind of story that travels. One journalist called her restaurant for a comment. Her PR response was 5 sentences long, factual, and quoted by 11 outlets. Through all of it, she ran her restaurant. Full tables. Good food. Her father's recipes and her own additions, the jollof and the doenjang jjiggy and the pepper soup rice cake combination that people came from Abuja specifically to try. Chisholm called on a Wednesday. She was crying before Kamsi even said hello. The full, broken kind of crying that has no performance in it. That is just a body releasing what it has been holding too long. "Are you safe?" Kamsi said. First question. Not an accusation, not a demand, just the baseline. "Yes, Kamsi, I'm so." "I know." The crying continued for a while. Kamsi sat with the phone against her ear and let her sister be in it without rushing her out. "Come to the restaurant on Sunday," she said, when Chisholm's breathing had steadied. "We'll eat, we'll talk. It will take time and I won't pretend it won't, but come." She did not say, "I forgive you." That was not yet true, and she was not a woman who said things that weren't true to manage other people's comfort. But she left the door unlocked. For now, that was enough. Kamsi's kitchen had never been fully booked 3 months in advance before. It was now. The press had been kind in a way that surprised her, not soft, which she would have resented, but accurate. One profile described her as the woman who built a culinary institution and then dismantled a criminal network with the same precision she applies to a tasting menu. She had framed it, hung it in the kitchen where the staff could see it. On the Sunday morning 6 weeks after everything concluded, she was at the pass reading the week's bookings when Hyun-woo arrived. On time. He was always on time. He had 2 coffees, Kenyan's single origin from the roaster 3 streets away, the one she had mentioned once in passing, and apparently he had filed away, and he set one in front of her without a word. She took it without a word. He sat at the bar with whatever he was reading on his phone, entirely at ease in the space, no longer occupying it the way a guest occupies a place they have been invited to. He was in it the way people are in places where they belong, without the small adjustments of someone working out where to put themselves. The kitchen staff arrived one by one, greeted them both. Nobody looked twice at him. He belonged here. She looked at him over the rim of her coffee cup. "The new contract," she said. "Signed it this morning." He did not look up from his phone. "And the Thursday clause. Amended to include Sundays." She set her cup down, looked back at the reservations. "My father would have liked you," she said. "He had very specific standards for people. He said you could tell everything you needed to know about someone by how they waited, whether they filled the time with noise or they just waited." "How do I wait?" "Quietly," she said. "You wait quietly." He looked up. She was already looking at the bookings. But she was smiling, the real one, the unperformed one, the one that had been buried under every composed public face she had worn for 30 years. And she did not try to manage it. Outside, Lagos was fully awake. The street noise rose and blended with the sound of her kitchen coming to life. Flames catching, water running, the particular percussion of a restaurant at the start of service. The smell of her father's recipes and her own additions, the whole layered, warm thing she had built from nothing, filled the room. She was 30 years old. She had lost everything she thought she needed, and found everything she actually had. She picked up her pen. There was work to do. If Kamsi's story moved you, if you saw yourself in her strength or her grief, or the moment she finally smiled without managing it, then this channel is your home. Subscribe so you never miss a story. Drop a comment below, what moment hit you the hardest, and share this with someone who needs to hear it today. We'll see you in the next one.